Hello, hello, everyone. Today's a stream that I think all people who think they're going to abuse children should be aware of. We're going to start out with Stephen Sanderson. Stephen Sanderson was forced to be in a cell with someone who essayed children. And let's hear his story.
Why don't you just go ahead and tell us what happened?
All right, I guess he decided to clear his conscience or something, but, he told me what he was in prison for, that he had, was accused of raping an 11-year-old girl, and he got 25 to life for it. And, I told him that's enough. I don't want to hear anymore. I first, punched him a couple times. Still wouldn't shut up. Still kept telling me he wanted to explain that he didn't do it, that he was being.
He wanted to tell him about it, but he wanted to give the reason why he didn't do it. Isn't that what they all say? Everybody in prison's innocent, right?
Being set up and all this stuff, and I don't know, I just got mad and then hit him, and then I killed him. When I hit him and knocked him out, and then I took the shoelaces out of his shoes, tied them together, wrapped it around his neck, and strangled him. Then after I was done, I was aware of what I was doing, and then I just put him on his bed and covered him up and climbed in my bed and went to sleep.
Of course,
I
he
noticed,
was aware.
obviously we've been in your cell, that it appears that all of your belongings you
Packed up, yep.
Okay. When did you do that?
Right after I knew he was dead.
Right after you knew.
So,
And the reason for doing that would be,
because when you go to the hole, that's usually what the police do, to pack it up. And I figured, yeah, they're going to tear my shit up. So
okay.
let me just do it myself.
So what happened to the shoelaces?
Flushed them down the toilet.
Okay. Now those laces came out of Ted's shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then when you were done, you flushed it down the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you do that?
Because I'm an idiot. I don't know. Obviously I don't think right. I'm in prison for most of my life. So my thinking isn't rational. I don't know. I just kind of
Thought that was the appropriate thing to do.
Of course, he thought it was appropriate. The worst of the worst criminals don't like people who mess with children. So if you go meet the big house, then you're going to meet somebody like him. Probably hundreds like him. You should think about before you do the crime. Because the hell you inflicted on them children is the same hell a man like this is going to inflict on you.
At that time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know. I know murdering somebody's not a good thing, but Jesus, man, if the things this guy did, things he said he did, I wouldn't want someone like that on the street again. So I do what's necessary. I do what some people won't. You guys are cops. You arrest people all the time for stuff that you wish you could shoot them in the face. I already know that. I'm not stupid.
Yep, and I'm with him on that. People like that who hurt children in such a grotesque way should never be free to hurt another child again. Not one day.
I mean,
I understand.
there's crimes that shouldn't be committed. So, I just don't have any empathy for people.
So basically, what you did, you figure Ted got what he deserved.
Ted got what he deserved. I believe that with all my heart.
Okay.
I hit him a couple times and I pulled the chair back and sat in the chair, and then he kind of got up posturing on me. That's kind of like means, he got up like, so I was like, okay, and then I caught him again. And when he went down, I was like, yeah, sucks to be you. I just don't think
Suck to be you if you're hurting
stabbing
children.
somebody's a little too impersonal. If you're going to kill somebody, you might as well be personal about it, right?
You think that's more personal?
Yeah, I just, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but if you have to go to that extent,
Yeah.
I want it to be personal. I don't like if I have intent, I want it to be personal.
Yep.
Fear
Let it be
completely
personal.
You won't see stacks hanging from the ceiling because the entire building is a speaker and a video screen. Look up. I mean, it's complete madness, really, but we'd be mad not.
Yeah, you want it to be personal. Because what these kind of people do to children, it's personal. Let's see what Mr. Sanderson said in court.
How do you wish to plead to the second count of murder in the second degree? Guilty?
Yes, sir.
You're doing so freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Doing so because you are guilty?
Yes,
All
sir.
right.
The reason I killed him was because he was a child molester.
But you did in fact kill him,
Oh, sure.
and you intended to kill him.
Oh, sure, yes. Well, if it's all right, I'd like to tell you where it started.
Go ahead.
All right, well, he was my bunkie, and I had found out that he was in prison for child molestation. Really bad.
Any case is a really bad case. Any sicko who hurts children should meet this same demise, in my opinion. I think we should go back to the old days. Hang them in front of the whole country.
So that night he was trying to justify why he did it, and I just told him to be quiet, and he would have to leave in the morning to find a new cell. But he continued to talk about it and try to justify it. So he was a little bit bigger than me, so I got down and I hit him in his face a few times, and when he fell, I wrapped a cord around his neck and I took his life.
And that's what should happen to all pedos, in my opinion. But if you think this is a one-off case, let's listen to some other people who've been to prison and know what happens.
Experience is from Oregon. Some states will segregate the sex offenders from the rest of the fucking gen pop for their safety. Fuck that. The state of Oregon actually tried that. That's what Snake River Correctional Institution used to be. That whole facility started off just to house sex offenders. And it's one of the nicest, cleanest facilities in the state. But the sex offenders got upset and they felt like they were being discriminated against. So they filed the fuck lawsuit and motherfucking felons. Can you guess how? Again, he's in
I'm going to leave the description to all these videos in my description section. I'll leave the link. Because I think anyone who harms children in such a way needs to watch this, needs to watch every one of these videos all the way through so they know when they're finally arrested what's going to happen to them. But let's carry on.
Titled baby raping piece of shit. Nicest fucking state. I'm betting they probably had Nickelodeon and Disney Channel too. But they fucked around and they found out. They started shipping every other joint in the fucking state. But while they were doing that, they were sending solid ass dudes to Snake River. But everybody knew that Snake River was a sex offender prison. So there was this confusion, and a lot of people got fucked up because they thought that good dudes were actually sex offenders. It was some messy ass bullshit, and it was entirely on administration. To my knowledge, and I might be wrong about this, I might be off base, I don't have experience with it, but I don't think Oregon has any large PC yard. Like Snake River was answer for shit. They have two rivers, which is set up like a supermax, where it's like unit to unit. You see people around it.
Yep, if you end up in prison, you should face the consequences. I don't think anyone who goes there should be free from what happens to them, because if them children have a voice or a say when
protesting for the right to is a demon destroyed out there protesting and crap, saying, "Oh, abortion saves lives." That kills life. Abortion kills little babies and kills everybody. You dumbass. I go looking at all these protesters on the internet. They're all fat ass bitches that are ugly as hell. I don't know these women. I would never even want to have sex with any of these fat ass bitches that are out there protesting. They're all it's like the first.
some are his opinions, not mine. Let's just skip past through this.
This mistake is costing
back out onto the streets. I'm sure he's safe around women and children. He seems completely rehabilitated. I'm never this dude that can serve. I never get the shit beat out. I feel like a lot of people, everybody hated him, but I feel like a lot of people felt a little bit of sympathy for him because he was clearly disabled as fuck, wasn't going to be able to fight ball. And even though we hate pedophiles, a lot of us are just not trained to be bullies, man. We're not trying to do that to somebody who has a disability. Even though he probably deserved it, he did get a lot more passes than he probably should have. Now, I fucking love administrative oversights because they make amazing things happen. So there was a child molester that was out at Snake who the dad of the child ended up ding, ding, ding on the same complex out at Snake. Not the same unit, but the same complex. This dad asked us for a shank and we were like, bet that shit up, homeboy. We got this. We support you. And he went and soldiered across the fucking hall, down the fucking way, got into the unit and got in the shower and was caught trying to straight scalp this motherfucker. He was trying to cut this dude's wig straight the fuck off his head.
Okay, y'all can go over to this channel to watch the whole thing, what he has to say. If you're a child P, just be ready to face the consequences. Let's see what some of these other people have to say.
All right, real quick, I'm going to tell y'all about the Chomos and pedophiles at SCI Pittsburgh, SCI Camp Hill, SCI Greaterford. It don't matter what jail it is in PA. They're straight up getting fucking demolished, like, for real. You can ask anybody. They're the walking dead, dude. They walk with their head down. They're fucking bums. They gotta smoke cigarettes off the ground. Roaches that people threw. It's disgusting. So I'm gonna tell y'all a little bit about what happens to them when they first get to state prison. Okay, they're classified. Boom. They get to the block and
Listen up, you sickos. This is what happened. Listen to the story well.
they basically just walk around with their heads down because of the way that they're treated. They're treated like they're unequal, which is obviously the way they're supposed to be treated. A little bit about that. This is how they're treated. They get spit on. So these men, they walk around with loogies dripping off of their jackets, and literally, we were going to yard the one day, and this chomo bull was literally walking.
When the predator becomes the prey. That's how it goes, people.
Loogie, like he literally had like 18 loogies dripping down him. It looked like bird crap. So this is the first time that myself was exposed to this type of I don't know the word I'm looking for.
I can help you with the word, with this type of violence towards another inmate.
These events, I've never experienced anything like this in my life, so it was just blowing my mind. Now, I'm the type of dude that I had no respect for these guys, so I sat back and laughed and watched and participated in these events. Now, on the streets, if I see a chomo, am I going to do that? No, because I got a lot to lose. Now, when I was there, I had nothing to lose. I had nothing.
They have nothing to lose and everything to gain when they do this to these people convicted of hurting innocent children.
To gain off of it either, besides respect. I mean, it's like a untalked about nature that everybody is a participant in. Sorry. Yeah, you have to do these things when you're upstate. I mean, you have no choice. If you're a convict like myself and a respected convict, I mean, you're not just going to go around touching kids and things of that nature. So
Listen up, you sickos. You're not going to go around touching kids and things of that nature, or this is what's going to happen to you.
obviously, we're going to disrespect them dudes. They have nothing in their cell. One time they put me in a cell with one of these guys, and my right hand to God, I gave away everything that he owned. Just so he didn't want to be my cellie. So this is how people are treated with them type of charges. Now, if you're the type of freak ass, dude that would participate in one of these charges, I mean, I would consider not doing it because this is how you'll be treated.
He'd advise you not to mess with children, because what happens to you, you're not going to like.
Breaking at 5, a Charlotte County man facing 83 charges of crimes against children was found dead in his jail cell.
James Palmucci was arrested last month. He was accused of molesting children and having child porn on his phone.
NBC2's Shannon Clough reports from the Charlotte County Jail, where investigators found fabric wrapped around the 48-year-old inmate's neck.
Palmucci was found dead here at the jail this morning with fabric around his neck inside of his cell. We're told that staff was getting him prepared to go to court for an arraignment, which was supposed to be this morning.
Oh, sorry, guys. I'm sure it echoed. But this is what we call street justice.
James Palmucci was facing 83 charges relating to child porn in September. In just the last 2.5 weeks, prosecutors filed 18 new charges, and separately, there was an FBI investigation.
He was looking at a decent amount of time. We also had our partners down at the FBI that were working an investigation at the same time. So possibly he could have seen federal charges as well.
Among
Do you think any of them law enforcement officers cried over his death? You think they gave a shit? They gave just as much a shit as you did for the child that you hurt.
Among Palmucci's charges, he was accused of inappropriately touching children under the age of 12, taking inappropriate pictures and videos of children, plus numerous battery charges on children.
Our focus will be with the victims and get them any help that we need at this point.
Investigators can't say how many victims there are.
There was a good amount of victims, more than we originally thought when we first started off.
For every victim, there is still help.
Our focus will be with the victims and get them any help that we need at this point.
Investigators say in Palmucci's time here at the jail, he had no reports of suicidal thoughts, and they also say that he was never threatened while he was here. We are told that right now his death is still under investigation. Detectives are waiting on his official autopsy, but they tell me they have reason to believe this was suicide.
Suicide. Do you believe that? They believe this was suicide. What do you guys think? Put a 1 in the chat if you think it was suicide. Put a 2 if you think another prisoner did this to him. And let's watch this one.
People think learning piano takes a really long time, but that's false. Here's how long it really takes.
Watson was an inmate at a California prison, sharing a cell with David Bob and Louis Conti, both of which were serving life sentences for aggravated sexual assault of an underage child. Day in and day out, Watson saw how the two felt no remorse, and how they went on to brag about their crime. They even allegedly taunted him by watching PBS Kids in a shared prisoner space.
No, you don't do that when you hurt little children, because other prisoners are not going to have it. Just remember that.
I could not sleep having not done what every instinct told me, said Watson in his confession letter. First, he tried moving to a different facility to get away from his violent tendencies, a request that was later declined. Watson finally gave in and decided that he'd, quote, just do everybody a favor, and picked up a cane and started beating them. He openly confessed the killing to the guards and is now serving a bigger sentence. Now, it's bad enough to be a child molester, but to show it off is even worse. The same way ex-cops are hated in prison, child molesters are treated worse.
So just think about that when you start thinking about hurting a little innocent child. Because this will be your story we'll be reporting on. Think about that. And if you've already hurt an innocent child, just know your day's coming.
The system has taken some action in the past to protect such inmates, so let's dive in to understand how a child molester is treated in prison. Now, if anybody goes to prison, nobody advertises their wrongdoings unless it's a crime for which they get street cred. Like we said, if you're an ex-cop, you'll have to convince them that you're niet policia. But as a sex offender, you're highly likely to be caught. In fact, according to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, roughly 11.6% of the federal inmate population consists of prisoners incarcerated for sexual offenses. This number not only includes child molesters, but also those involved in obscenity or child prostitution. When child molesters walk into prison, their life hangs in the balance of anonymity and security level. You may think higher security means higher protection, but it's the other way around.
Yeah, you're not safe unless you go to isolation. But don't think they can't get you there. So just remember, if you've hurt innocent children, this is what's going to happen to you while you're in prison.
A higher security level means more hardened criminals like murderers and racists, which ultimately leads to a worse experience. They can feel safe inside a low security federal prison that has dormitory housing and non-violent inmates. But if an inmate admits to being a sex offender, they're typically checked in. This means that they must go into protective custody for the sake of not getting attacked by fellow inmates. There have been countless stories about sex offenders getting harassed, attacked, and brutalized as part of the institutional culture. If they can't get protective custody, they have to force their way into long-term solitary confinement.
Yep, you don't want to be in general population, but you'll drive yourself crazy if you're in isolation. You should think long and hard before hurting children, because what happened to these guys will happen to you.
Safe place is the rougher yards. If they don't check in there, they're sometimes beat off a yard. Whether it's in the chow hall or in front of the lieutenant's office, prisoners knock the sex offender to the ground and stomp them in the prison guard's view. To avoid being the next David Bob or Louis Conti, first things first, don't brag. There's nothing to be proud of here.
Yep, it's nothing to be proud of in there, because just remember, you're in there with fathers, uncles, brothers, cousins of these children victims. And these men have nothing to do all day except make your life a living hell. And they'll take your life too.
Keeping a low profile is important. There's no need to needlessly carry a fake alias because some prisoners can get background checks pulled and can verify. Let's now take you through some of the worst deaths reported in prisons of child molesters and sex offenders, starting with the brutal murder of the loudmouth, Mr. Robert Munger. In 2020, Shane Goldsby was moved to the Airway Heights Correction Center, or AHCC, in Washington, where he was a cellmate with the convicted child molester Robert Munger. Goldsby shared how Munger bragged about his crimes. Considering that he was charged with first-degree child rape, 3 counts of child molestation, and first- and second-degree child porn possession, you can imagine Goldsby's ears were full. According to Goldsby, quote, "He kept giving me details about what happened and what he did, about the photos and videos of him doing this stuff." Before he could turn a deaf ear, he heard a story that was too familiar. One of Munger's stories was literally about Goldsby's underage sister who was raped. Goldsby said, quote, "I was like, what the f***? This stuff doesn't happen," he told the local broadcaster KHQ. "You're talking the same institution, the same unit, the same pod, and the same cell as this dude. That's like hitting the jackpot in the casino 7 times. Seeing it as an opportunity of a lifetime, Goldsby hit Munger in the face and head area about 14 times, then stomped on his head at least 4 times, gave him a few kicks, and walked away. Munger ultimately died of his injuries. Now, this also...
Oh, he died. I bet you he's in that special place in hell for people who hurt God's children. It says in the Bible. That's a no-no.
Seems too good to be true, isn't it? This is why Goldsby felt that it was a setup, and that the prison officials intentionally put him face to face with him. Next up, we have a former Cobb County church and school volunteer named Cesar Pastrana, who admitted to molesting 9 boys.
Oh, a church person accused of molesting 9 boys. Wonder what that street justice, or I should say that incarceration justice, did for the 9 victims that he had.
In 2012, he was sentenced to life in Hancock State Prison in...
I have to say, they deserve everything they get while they're incarcerated for hurting children.
In March 2020, a fight broke out at 12:15 p.m., leading to the death of Pastrana. According to the Georgia Department of Corrections, quote, "Agents have reason to believe offender Cesar Pastrana died as a result of injuries sustained during an altercation involving another inmate on March 13th. Although it is not clear whether his death was related to the crimes he committed against minors or whether it was an unrelated incident, many believe that the other inmate attacked him for abusing innocent children. For now, his death is ruled out as homicide." Now, some would argue that a fate worse than death is torture. Now, to some extent, they're right.
Yeah, I think torture is a lot better than giving them a way out. Because at least with torture, the victims get some kind of retribution. That's my opinion.
Especially considering what the 45-year-old inmate Charles shares about Britain's toughest jails, Moreland Prison. He told Vice News that he had witnessed a sex offender being slashed in the shower. He said, quote, "They held him down, cut him across the nips, his face, his and then one of the lads stuck a blade in his." Also sharing the jail space was former footballer of Sunderland FC, Adam Johnson, who was jailed for kissing, grooming, and groping a 15-year-old schoolgirl fan. According to Charles, Johnson had to convince fellow inmates he is not a child-molesting nonce. Charles also added that his mate was the wing cleaner. And for him, it, quote, Took him an hour to clear up the shower and walls. As you can tell, the fate of these inmates is either getting stabbed, sacked, or slashed. According to the federal statistics of 2015, male sex offenders make up about 15% of the prison population, but account for nearly 30% of homicide victims since 2007. They still are a vulnerable population within a prison setting. And without unit management, psychology treatment programs, and re-entry planning, they will continue down their path. This is why the Federal Bureau of Prisons came up with a new place dedicated to sex offenders only, the Sex Offender Management Program, or SOM.
Yeah, I don't believe there's help for people like that. That's my personal opinion. And I believe that prison justice is the best justice for these victims. Because while they're here on earth, they should know what it's like to be feared, to be brutalized, to be afraid of what's going to happen to them. In the same way, the innocent children endured the power that they had. And the reason that they're in prison, you see, I think they should all meet this fate. Maybe they can be rehabilitated if they're tortured day in and day out. So you sickos out there who hurt children, I hope and pray that you get your day behind bars for the victim's sake. And there's somebody like these men who will make sure that you think twice before hurting another child if you make it through your sentence.